later. Speaker of the House, Jason White, joins us this morning. Good morning to you, Mr. Speaker. I apologize. I feel like this is the last opportunity for you to kind of sleep in and enjoy a lazy morning with a cup of coffee and a warm fire, and here you are in studio with us. So my thanks.
No, Richard, we're glad to be here. We are off and running. Today will be a busy day, getting ready for tomorrow. It's sine die, by the way. That phrase you were looking for, that's the same phrase that all lawmakers and certainly all lobbyists and state agencies, that's their favorite motion is sine die.
They look forward to that?
Which means leave to never return.
And yet here we are, just 8 months later. You say busy day today. What do you have left to do in preparation for day one tomorrow?
Well, we've got, we always do like a kickoff press gaggle, if you will, in the Speaker's office. So we'll do that this afternoon. There's also a swearing-in ceremony for one of our new Supreme Court justices, Jennifer Branning. So we're excited about that. I've got a little part in that today, so we're looking forward to that at the Capitol this afternoon. So we're getting ready for that. But just a lot of housekeeping around, new session, a few new employees in the House. We don't have any new members, but we do have 2 open seats. So folks, those committee assignments, things like that, just everybody will be there ready for tomorrow because we kick off at noon tomorrow, as you know. Yeah. So just a little bit of logistics as it relates to that.
Let me ask you about Jennifer Branning just for a second. That was a nonpartisan election. Our judicial elections are a little strange in that they technically are nonpartisan, though you generally know based on who is supporting the candidates and who has endorsed the candidates as to kind of which side of the aisle they fall on. Obviously, Jennifer Branning was a legislator, a person that you know well. What does her election, in your mind, mean for the Supreme Court of Mississippi?
Well, as you say, they're nonpartisan, but certainly there's no denying Jennifer served, I think, 3 terms as a state senator, as a Republican, certainly, but even more than that, she's as conservative as political animals come. She is extremely conservative, and that's, folks get tore up about it, but for better or worse, that's what Mississippians want sitting in most places in state government. They like their conservatives elected to all branches of office, including sitting on the court. And, of course, she's a lawyer. She's been very successful there in her practice in Philadelphia. She's had a great career as a state senator, and so seeing her core values and beliefs and the way she conducted herself as a lawmaker drew people to want to be a part of her campaign when she said, hey, I think I want to run and be a part of our Supreme Court and make a difference there and ensure that it does have a conservative slant to it, if you will. Certainly judges call balls and strikes and they apply the law as it's there, but there's no denying that some judges take liberty and, if you close one eye and squint, it looks like this, or if you just keep them both open and call it like you see it. And that's what people are looking for. Nobody wants any stacked decks anymore, and we're looking for straightforward judges. Certainly conservative, no doubt.
Yeah, one of the things that was interesting to me is we interviewed all the candidates for the Supreme Court positions that were open going through that process, was asking the question over and over to each candidate what the Mississippi Constitution means in terms of, is it, this is the Constitution, this is how it was written, and this is how it is to be interpreted, or this is a living, breathing document and it's got to evolve over time. And hearing the difference in answers to those questions was kind of telling.
It was, but I mean, that's this crazy experiment that we play out every day, and our government as it's established in Mississippi is very similar to the federal system with our 3 branches and the checks and balances and all that. But it's the way our founders set it up, and I think it works. And I hadn't seen anybody come forward with a better model yet. And so, we'll keep doing it, and we'll keep fussing and fighting at the cap, and the governor will weigh in, and then the courts will weigh in, and SuperTalk has plenty to talk about most days.
That is true. We do not have many days where there's just nothing to get to this morning. Visiting with Jason White, Speaker of the House here in the state of Mississippi. One of the most important things in my mind that you do on the House side, that the Lieutenant Governor does on the Senate side, is put together these committee assignments. And there's I don't know. I guess people wait maybe with bated breath in the first year of a new legislative cycle to see who's going to be on what committee. Are there changes? Are there significant? What about once the cycle begins? How much change is there year to year in terms of committee assignments, if any?
There's almost none. As I was telling you, we've had we've had 2 House of Representatives members pass during the fall, and so we've got to fill those spots, if you will. And we'll have special elections in March. I believe the governor called those last week, and they'll be toward the end of March. But other than those few, they won't really change. So everything this time last year, you said they wait with bated breath. Some of them wait with pitchforks and pistols. Well, depending on whose ox is getting gored, so to speak. But this session, it's more about, like, we've had a session under our belt. Lawmakers have gotten settled into their positions, their chairmanships, their roles, the different roles. People start kind of carving out their little spots in each 4-year session as, hey, I'm going to concentrate on this, or I've really got an axe to grind on this issue. And people start figuring out, oh, that's the legislator that's really concerned with PBM reform, or that's the legislator that's really concerned with CON reform, whatever the issue is. And so as people start carving out their little spots, you see the conversation gravitate to those committees and those individuals on those issues. And of course, we tackled a lot of big topics in the House last year and last session, and some people said we were a little too ambitious, but it certainly was not from lack of hard work or for being willing to, some would say, kick the hornet's nest on things like PERS, on things like Medicaid, on things like education funding formula stuff. We spent a lot of time on that, and as session was out, we spent a lot of the off season. You can really focus. Like this time last year, I still wasn't voted in as speaker. That didn't happen until tomorrow at noon. So you were really, it was a little bit too much to start meeting and planning and talking about issues that we were going to tackle. And so we've had the off season this year to be ready to hit the ground running. Even this week, I suspect you'll see the House, probably not this week, but next week, pass at least 1, maybe 2 major pieces of legislation on tax reform, almost certainly, and then maybe even an education piece. Like we're ready. We know what those things look like. Yeah. I know where the Republican caucus is in the House, and I know where the general membership of the House is on most issues. And so now maybe we're fine-tuning a few things. And as people say, there's always some issue that bubbles up that nobody thought about that'll be the hot topic for you and JT and others for several days on this program.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. I feel like there are lots of people that look at the legislative cycle and they're like, I mean, why do they even start in January? Because it feels like they don't get anything done for the first month and a half. And then it's like this sprint to the finish line, and it's like you got to get the bills in, and they've got to debate them, and they got to vote on them, and you get to the very end, and there's something that's still hanging out there. What's going on behind the scenes? And it sounds like this year may be a little bit different than last year. Is there a way to be more efficient with the 90-day calendar, the 90-day window in which you guys are all in Jackson?
It is, but you do have to remember now, folks come from all over the state, and they'll get there this week, and we'll start having committee meetings pretty quick. And that first month, a bunch of that is legislation being drafted and kind of refined, and the committee process where, before anything hits the House or Senate floor, it has gone through a ringer in a committee where folks have, either tried to poke holes in it every way they could or make it better and refine it. And all of that bubbles up to a final product that can get a affirmative vote out of committee to make it to the House floor or Senate floor, as the case may be. So that first month, you're right, a lot of that is behind the scenes. And, of course, last year, the first month, everybody was being inaugurated and having balls and dances and everything else. And so we kind of, folks being sworn in and all the pageantry of that. So we don't have that this session. So it does shorten from 120 to 90 days. And that first committee deadline hits pretty quick toward the end of February.
We will continue our conversation with the Speaker of the House, Jason White, on the other side of this timeout. You're listening to the Gallo Radio Show on SuperTalk, Mississippi. We're back right after this. Thanks for being with us on this Monday morning, January 6th. We are on the eve of a new legislative session in Mississippi. Speaker of the House, Jason White, is our guest this morning. This is the Gallo Radio Show on SuperTalk, Mississippi. So you hit on a couple of the things that are certainly going to be issues going to be debated during this session. There are a lot of people that have talked about school choice, but you mentioned the funding formula a second ago, something that you tackled a year ago. Last week, Senator Angela Burks was on with us, and she was one of the ones that did not necessarily agree with the new formula and said that the math just doesn't work on this, and we're going to have school districts who are coming short on budgets. When you look at that funding model that is in place, what's your take on where we are now?
Well, I don't necessarily agree with her summation that she gave you last week. I heard it, but that's a discussion for another day. She doesn't agree on much that happens in the state Senate down there, so it's not surprising that she doesn't agree with the new school funding formula. But I love her, and we need her, and she makes our legislation better by being there. So I'm proud she's there. I just don't necessarily agree with her on that issue. And I don't think the school funding formula makes anybody raise any local taxes. Now, if a local jurisdiction hadn't been supporting their schools like they should, and the formula exposes that, so be it. That is what it is. We have the 27% rule, which says no locals ever pay more than 27% of the per pupil cost. And that rule is, I would like to get rid of that. I don't have the political capital to do that right now. But that is there. And so they're always capped there. But again, that's a technical discussion about numbers that probably nobody really cares about. We put a historic amount in our public schools last year, over $3 billion, and I'm not going to be sad or apologize or whatever about that. We finally put our money where our mouth is. The formula was new, and it was fully funded. It'll be fully funded again this year, and that'll be twice in its 2 years existence, which is MAEP was only fully funded twice in 27 years, and this funding formula, which puts in just as much money, will be fully funded twice. But it's transparent, and Lance and you and JT and me can sit down with an iPad, and you can pull up any school district you want. You can understand exactly the per pupil cost and how it got there and the weights and the transparency nature of it. I think it's good. And I hadn't found anybody yet, and I mean school professionals, superintendents, who don't like it and aren't glad we have it. And I would remind everybody it took us that bill died 3 times last session. It was a good lesson for me in politics of focusing on a big issue and staying with it. And they say nothing's dead till it's dead, dead, dead. Well, that one was dead 3 times, and we were able to revive it one more time. I was proud of that legislation.
There have, however, been a lot of people in school districts, whether they're educators or superintendents or principals, who don't necessarily line up with what some people think about school choice and the ability for parents to move students from one district to another. There are questions about where the money goes, whether the money follows a student or it stays in the district despite a student leaving, and what costs may be associated for a new district with taking in students that it's not necessarily getting funding for. Where is that debate going to go? I'm not asking you to tell me where it's going to end, but how's the debate going to unfold?
It's going to go exactly as you just described it. Here's where I start. I try to get folks around the table and say, okay, do you agree with me? Yes, we've got to work out the specifics, but do you agree with me at the end of the day, the goal is to give parents more choice and an opportunity to go to either a neighboring public school district that is dynamic and doing great things, or the state portion of the money follow that child to a private school that would meet their needs, especially if they're in a D or F district. Well, the problem is most folks that get hung up on the technicalities of which you just spoke, Richard, they're hung up on those technicalities, not because they're technicalities, but because they're against school choice. And so they just use those things as hurdles. My point is, other states have solved those issues. We can solve them too, even with our, Lord knows we have a very sordid past in our racial history and integration and how the private schools sprang up and all of that. There's no denying that. And because of that complicated and sometimes ugly history, all of that bleeds back in to the public school debate and the funding of our schools.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I mean, we're 50 years past that. And if you look around, a ton of our private schools, number one, are integrated, number one, and number two, they're about the best and only option in some regions of our state. But they're unreachable for a lot of our households because that $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000 tuition might as well be $60,000 because they can't afford that. But they would like some alternative for their kids. And if they're willing to leave their public school and take the state portion of funding, not take any of the local taxes. So let's get that off the table. Nobody is proposing that we take the local share and let that money go to another public school district or go to a private school. But the state portion, the part that the state pays, that all taxpayers in Mississippi contribute to, we're proposing that part follow that child to another public school district that is willing to take that child if the parents are willing to transport them there. We don't have the transportation piece, so parents are going to have to be willing to get that child there. But in a lot of cases, they work in a neighboring school district or something. And again, nobody's being forced to take them, but the home school district can't hold them against their will. That's what we're going to propose in the House, is a portability piece there. Now, in addition to that, kids that are in DNF districts, we're going to propose that the state portion of funding follow that child into an ESA account that they could use at any school that parents choose for them, that's not their local public school. We intend to set up, hopefully, a fund that would make up the difference. It'll be capped. We can't go endless there, but we can put $5, $10, $20 million into an account that kids can draw from to make up the difference. I would
not that money is actually going into their pocket or their parents' pocket. It will be transferred
correct.
to the district through the state.
That's correct.
In this proposal.
That's correct. It will never go into their pocket.
Let me read you this text that I got from a friend a week or so ago, and I will not reveal the location. He said, "This conversation is segregation academy welfare. I don't want money going to a private school from my local public school because some parents that live in a country club don't want their kids going to school with kids of another race."
All right. That's a fair assessment. I would say to you, first of all, at some point we as a state have to move past that. But even more so than that, our bill says you have to have been in a public school for 1 year. And understand, some private schools probably won't participate in this at all. But some will. Charter schools will. Other places will. Private school parents pay taxes just like public school parents. They have kids. They educate their kids. They make choices. I just have trouble telling my parents, for instance, in Holmes County, tough luck. You got to move to Madison County if you want a great public school. That's just the way it's got to be. I'm not willing to tell them that. I'm not willing to hollow out certain regions of our state as folks chase a zip code. And certainly communities that are dynamic and progressive in all the other ways, like y'all have going on in Oxford with the university and economic development, all the great things that are going on. You have good leadership there. People are drawn to that, and they're always going to be drawn to places like that. And a public school is part of the ingredients that makes that community great. But let's be honest, that while that is what we all strive for, that is the exception and not the rule in our state. And all we're saying is let's give parents some choice. We're not taking huge steps. These are baby steps, and ones that we think we can methodically phase in and see where we get. If the sky falls, we'll back up. But the kids have to have been in public school, so we're not subsidizing segregation academies that are out there. And for your buddy who sent you the text, I would just tell him, go see some private schools today and go watch a ball game, and you'll see they're not what you remember from mine and your childhood, Richard. It's a different deal.
Visiting with Jason White, Speaker of the House, as we are on the eve of the legislative session. You got time to hang for the next segment and
yes, sir.
Wrap things up at the end of the hour? Good.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I don't feel like a minute and a half is enough time for us to address. There's one more issue that we have to get to, tax reform, and good grief, that's got a bunch of layers to it. I don't think 6 minutes is going to be enough for it either as well. Quickly, any significant gaming changes that you expect, whether it's mobile sports betting or the casino in Jackson, or where's that going?
The House is going to, we will pass fairly early another, again this year, online sports betting legislation to allow it. We already allow sports betting. Let's take the next reasonable, logical step that folks are all asking for, that our industry's ready for it, and it's time for us to do it. The House will pass that again. It'll be a strong House position.
How much pushback is there from the gaming industry and gaming lobbyists to not have that happen?
Almost none. It's
Really?
coming from the state Senate. When you have a state senator in here, you need to ask him or her what the deal is, because it seems silly now. We've got, I think, 36, 37 operators, and about 34, 35 of them want it. And they do it in other states. These facilities that have places here where they're in another state, they do it. It's fine. Everybody's set up to do it. It looks like a little bit of market or turf protection. It's time we move past that.
Jason White, Speaker of the House, Mississippi House of Representatives. We'll finish up the conversation with him on the other side of this timeout. Got some of you sending questions on the C Spire text line for Speaker of the House, Jason White. You're just going to have to forgive me for not getting to all of them because, our time is limited, and we will visit again. I hope.
I hope.
That's good. Oh, well, as long as you hope, also, then we'll put it on the schedule. We will make sure that happens. Just a couple of minutes left with Speaker White. So session gets started tomorrow. Sport coat or suit?
Tomorrow will be a suit. My preacher's coming. He's going to kick us off with prayer, so I better look my best. Right?
There you go. This tax reform debate, and I don't know if that's the way to describe it. I mean, I guess to some degree it's tax reform at every level. There has been, I guess, continues to be a little bit of a disagreement, maybe a lot of a disagreement between your side of the chamber and the Senate side. I have said repeatedly since we visited, I guess it was at Hobnob back in October, that I don't see that you and Lieutenant Governor Hoseman are as far apart as a lot of people do. Is the big difference just the way we get to the finish line? Is that the biggest? I mean, do both of you ultimately want to eliminate the income tax? It's about how you get there.
I don't know. I won't speak for him. I certainly do, and I think it's a red herring to just say, oh well, we got one more year of phase in. There's no need for us to do anything this year because I do know, and I'm not putting this on Lieutenant Governor Hoseman. This is just general around the Capitol since my first day there. People love to run the clock out, like those deadlines that we were talking about earlier, and seem slow in session, then it comes fast, and that sort of thing. Those deadlines are designed to kill stuff, and you can sit on your hands and play defense. And certainly, when you sit in the chair that I sit in, or you sit in the chair that he sits in, it is easy to play defense and be quiet and let things die. I mean, that's just the reality. When folks tell you, "Oh, we just couldn't do this or couldn't do that," you can stall and be patient and just let it die by virtue of the deadlines, and without ever having to be take an affirmative stance one way or another. And so that's why I'm just naive enough to just say out, here's where we are. And maybe that's from being a country lawyer or being a redneck or coming from the hills of Itala County, but I just have to call it like I see it. I'm not smart enough to give you these cagey answers, and if it looks like this, and if I do this, and maybe if the economist says this. We need to get rid of the income tax. We need to move to a consumption-based economy. If Richard Cross was setting up a state government or a federal government today, it would be based on, you would fund government, core functions of government based on a consumption model where you pay tax on the things that you choose to pay for, that you choose to consume and buy, and not on your productivity and your work and your income. You wouldn't set it up that way. We say we want to be like Florida and Texas and Tennessee and these other states that are really killing it in the Southeast. Well, we can do this. We do have it shaved down to about a little over $2 billion worth of our $7 billion state budget is now derived from personal income tax. We can do that over 6, 8, 10 years. Go ahead and put it in place. Let's do it. Let's don't say we're going to do it next year. We're going to do one more piece. Let's do it where it doesn't require any further legislative action. We can talk about other things. We can move to a consumption-based economy and cut our grocery tax significantly. We can handle it. We can do it. Now, does it make appropriators and folks that like to spend government money have to get the fine pencil out and sharpen it and really figure on the budget? It does. It causes tough conversations. It's easy when you got plenty of money, and then somebody says, well, I need that other million. So, okay, we got plenty of money to do it. It gets harder when you actually shave that thing down to where you really got to think about. And it's so easy to spend other people's money. I'll be honest with you. It's a whole lot different than if you're at your kitchen table or you're at your office figuring out your budget for your family or your business. The money is the money. Unfortunately, at the Capitol, politicians sit around. It's other people's money. It's just easier to throw another dollar at it. And I'm not saying anybody's doing that on the other end of the building. What I am saying is it will force us to have necessary conversations about an austere budget. And we can move to that place where other states are. That's one. It won't bring every corporate citizen that's looking to relocate to Mississippi, but it is one more piece of the puzzle. It's one more thing we can take off the table and say, we have no income tax, we have no personal income tax. It's one more piece of the puzzle that the MDA folks can use as we are growing our economy.
So to me, that's the biggest piece of it, and obviously this is a conversation that's going to have to continue. If we could look into a crystal ball and project that economic development was going to continue in the state of Mississippi for the next decade the way it has for the last 3-4 years, then it feels like it's almost a no-brainer because you're going to raise the amount of tax that's coming in to the state, and you're going to create more revenue, in which case it all makes sense. It's, okay, if that slows at all and you get to the point where you don't have the surplus, that it gets a little nerve-wracking, right?
Well, I'll tell you, just like Governor Reeves reminds me often, we meet every January. The legislature comes into session every January. We have this conversation. We'll be back in those years. We can do it measurably. The state's economy has never not grown a couple of percent. And 2% growth covers a very minuscule tax cut phased in over several years. And that's what we're talking about doing. Now, if I came in here and told you we're going to do this next year and just get rid of it, that would be reckless. Doing it over 6, 8, 10 years, that's measured, and that's something we can stomach and handle.
An incremental rollout does seem to make a lot of sense. We didn't get to Medicaid expansion. We didn't get to PERS. We'll do that another time. All the best as you roll into this new session. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you.
Jason White, Speaker of the House.